The ancestors are calling. So maybe that's also why I do what I do. I don't know. It's their call. Could be.
Yo, they be looking, but they ain't seeing nothing really. Like they pick up a few, them disappear, they can't get me. I'm levitated, elevating higher than the ceiling. Like we just said, no ceilings, I do not see it. You making noise like a generator, I am solar. I'm burning in my flows, I'm more bitter than cooler.
My name is Heidi Lobato and I'm director of Africa and the Picture Film Festival Amsterdam. The vision or the narratives or the stories and the productions by African or diaspora cineasts are hardly found in the large festivals. Still, you know, you do have African films, but mainly they are from Western filmmakers or semi-Western productions or American productions. And so now and then, every now and then, you find a few that are made by African filmmakers or diaspora filmmakers. And we think that you should show the total vision of the whole world globally in an equal matter, and that's what we work for. Yeah, you could say that's what we do. I was born in Curacao, which is the West Indies, the transatlantic ocean, it's just the Caribbean. My parents were born in Latin America, like Suriname is in South America, and my mother's family is from Himalaya, actually Nepalese side of India, and other side even Madras, so that's even more India, so that's Asia, and then of course Africa. For a long time I didn't know I had a connection with Africa, so to speak, even though funny enough the first time I came to Africa, or I went to Africa, was in '87 already. The minute the plane was landing, actually it was like there was this blanket coming over me, and a warm blanket, and it felt so comfortable, and I thought like I'm home. That first time I was for a month in Africa, in West Africa. I didn't want to go home even. I said like that's it, I stay here. And they actually had to force me to call my mother and my boyfriend at the time to get me back in a plane to Holland because I didn't want to go. And I couldn't explain why, because I had no explanation, to be honest. It took till 2004 that I discovered actually my West African great-grandmother, which I didn't know I had, because my aunt in Suriname, on a visit in Suriname, she said like, oh, you are always so into this family shit, and blah, 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 blah. You always want to know who is who and where we come from and blah, blah, blah. And then she showed me a picture and I said, but this is an African woman. And then she said like, oh, didn't we tell you she was you call it gemanumisierd. And that means a freed slave. And then it made it different, that I thought like, oh, part of my genes actually were home and felt at home. And I have to admit that every time I come back from Africa, no matter what country, I cry the whole plane, the whole flight. I cry, actually, because I don't know why. You know, like it takes me a day or two to adjust again. We drove to Benin, actually, from Burkina, which was quite interesting, and then you had this slave route. We came to the square where the slaves were sold, and then you can walk the 5 kilometers to the shore, because Benin doesn't have a harbor, so they sailed the people with small boats to the big boats, and then they crossed the ocean. But before that they had to walk, after they were sold, from the square 5 kilometers, and you pass several things, and one of the things was the Tree of Forgiveness, for instance. And then you have to walk around the tree. They make people, the African people, to walk 5 times, I believe, around that tree, and to leave there their names, their relatives, their tribes, their everything that they knew till then, and they became nothing. And they dehumanized people big time. And if you walk around this Tree of Forgiveness, it really gets to you, like what people did, you know, and like what they forced Africans to do. And they put people in a sort of hole around under the ground. There was no daylight, there was nothing in there. And just to make sure, they stayed there for a month to make sure if people could do the trip across the ocean. People packed in there. And if you went crazy, of course you get crazy. I mean, who can be under the ground for a month like that? Then they just throw those people in another hole without even killing them. They were not even worth a bullet, and buried them alive. So there were all these squares there that they now made sort of monuments for the people who died there, were killed there, buried alive. And it really was quite shocking, you know. It really shocked me, and I thought, like, my goodness, just imagine, you know. I was standing there, and it was quite something. And then on the beach, they made this monument, like the point of no return. I walked through that gate, and I couldn't speak the whole 5 kilometers anymore. I couldn't say anything because it was really getting to me. And I walked into the water, and the people I was with were thinking, like, where is she going? But they didn't dare to ask because I couldn't speak, and I didn't want to speak anymore. And then I suddenly thought, like, first I walked away from it all, then I walked back, and then I thought, like, wait a minute. So I thought, like, the point of no return, the point of no return. But I'm here, and if I am an African descendant, part of me, but we did come back, so I walked back into the gate, you know, like into the country, and thinking, like, but we did return, we did, even if it's like centuries later, but we did.
My baby is getting protocol, there's a BlackBerry song, yours is Motorola. Ha 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 ha, see your ass later. Drip is a general, Thames be the mayor. What you do is minor, but this is so major.
Africa in the picture is really important.
Africa belongs to Amsterdam because Africa is not just somewhere else, but Africa is everywhere.
We show, of course, films from African cineasts or diaspora cineasts. And we do so because there is a lack of room for this type of cinema from the point of view of African cineasts and diaspora cineasts themselves.
Impression is a blessing that I'm given and expressing, and the dress is in a lesson that I never really mentioned. How do I impress? That's a good question. Do I get a mention that I'm giving you my...
I love my work. I love the things I do, and I'm always happy if you can build up things. And because we are connected globally, I always knew I wanted to work internationally, so to speak, you know, like, because like the Netherlands is way too small for me. I'm a free spirit. I need, it's my oxygen to see different cultures, to see what people do, how they do it, how they work, how they live. And maybe it's also like, maybe it's also an ancestral call. It's time to make it broader, to develop it, like, for all the people coming now with all these mixed combinations and African descendants, or Africa is born in them, or it's needed, you know. The continent also need it, but we need the continent as well.
So we can inform ourselves about what is actually going on the continent, and how are the people living, how are the people thinking, what are they feeling, how do they see their future. And I get inspired if I hear those stories. I get inspired if I hear those people talking. I want to hear them much, much more. And Africa in the Picture is one of the few platforms where you can hear those voices, and it inspires me. So if it inspires me, I think it can be an inspiration to a lot of people, also non-Africans.
When people meet us for the first time or come to the festival for the first time, they're always very surprised by the quality of the productions, and then also about the beauty and the roughness and the right in your face, no matter what subject, you know. A thriller, actually a crime thriller from Congo, Viva Riva, The other was an old film, Ezra, from Child Soldiers, fiction, Child Soldiers on Sierra Leone. Skin was actually on apartheid, that a black woman was born in a white family during the apartheid years, Sandra Lang. And then 14 kilometers is actually of people, Africans coming to Europe, you know, like, and going through this desert. But it's quite a beautiful film actually also, and from the point of view of African people. So it has also a lot of humor, and even though it has a lot of sadness in it, but it also shows strength. All of the films show strength, and the audience were flabbergasted. They were quite amazed, you know, like that they said like, whoa, this is, I didn't know this exists. Why is it not in distribution? Well, we still need to win that part, that people start to realize that there is a large number of films that they never see. But if you don't know it's there, how can you miss it? So we still need to do a lot of work, but because of lack of finance, we can do it only little steps.
Heidi is an inspirational person, you know. She knows so much about African film and African art and thinking, politics. So it's interesting to also learn from her ideas and from her knowledge. I appreciate the platform and the unbiased view that African Picture offers, and also the possibility it gives, for instance, native Dutch people and African people living in Holland, diaspora people living in Holland, to come and also experience the festival, because the festival, to be at the festival is also not only watching the movies but also being at the festival is nice.
I'm from Suriname, and I think my roots are also in Africa for a part, and they say that Surinamese people come from the West African side. I've never been in Africa, so for me this is quite an interesting period, because I learn a lot about the continent. So maybe this is the closest I can get to Africa, and maybe this festival brings me to the continent in real life.
To the mother of the story, you might think you know me, but you never really know me. Some call me Chuke, some call me Tony Boy.
Another friend of mine of another platform, she was telling me she has family in an African country. She was telling me for years, she's telling us like, come, let's build an ecosystem there, blah blah blah, there on the land of my family, and then we're all gonna live there. None of us have a pension. We always worked so hard for the mother continent. We gave everything we had. So we end up with nothing. And what if we grow old? Let's start build this ecosystem that we don't need anything, the land provides it. I find that quite tempting. I think that's what I would like to do. Like, what if you can manage to do that? Then you are really there, you know. You don't need anything, you can provide from the land where you live. Wow.
All I need is one night to let this slide. I've been greasy. What else is there to prove? I barely even please me. Superhero breed, I show up when I'm needed.